The stars above Zero's prime shimmered like distant flames, quiet and endless, but peace was a lie. A Varnax Dominion cruiser hung in orbit. Scanning the surface below, it was sleek and black, shaped like a curved claw. And its crew didn't hesitate. Without warning, it fired. The energy blast shot out in a straight line, cutting through the silence of space. It hit a small human survey ship that was quietly scanning minerals near the planet. The explosion lit up the orbit like a fall sunrise. The ship tore in half within seconds. Its hull shattered, and its crew vanished into the void. The alien commander of the Varnax cruiser gave a short command, cold and certain. He thought he had just destroyed a spy, a threat, something weak. He did not expect what came next. Far above Zero's prime, hidden behind a dead moon, floated something massive, quiet and terrifying. It was the human warship Horizon's Reach, a Titan-class dreadnought built for war. Made of black titanium, wrapped in reactive shielding, the ship did not move. Not at first, it just watched inside. Commander Nolan Graves stood on the bridge, arms crossed. His eyes were fixed on the data coming in. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with gray streaks in his dark hair. He had fought in 3 star fronts and survived things that others didn't talk about. But today felt different. One of the bridge officers, a young man named Harris, turned toward him, voice shaking. "Sir, we just lost the survey crew, no warning, just gone." Nolan didn't speak for a few seconds. He looked at the main screen, then back at the crew. His voice came out flat. "Did they broadcast anything before they fired?" "No, sir," Harris replied. "No threats, no signals. They just attacked." Nolan nodded slowly. Then he gave the order, "Activate time lock protocol." Everyone on the bridge went still, even the ship's I paused. It was an order not given lightly. It meant the situation had crossed a line. It meant the human response would now break every rule of conventional warfare. A deep hum filled the ship. The air shimmered faintly, lights dimmed, then flickered blue outside the ship. Something strange happened. The stars twisted, and time around the vessel stopped. To those outside, Horizon's Reach had vanished, or worse, become untouchable. Time froze in a wide bubble, kilometers wide. All alien ships, missiles, movement, everything halted in mid-air like a paused holovid inside the ship. Time still flowed normally. That was the power of the Titan-class dreadnoughts machines, built not just with metal and weapons, but with tech humanity had barely understood when they first built it. Horizon's Reach didn't just fight wars, it decided when they started and when they stopped. Lieutenant Ava Monroe stood beside Nolan. Her face was pale. She had only recently been assigned to the Titan, fresh from Fleet Command School. "Sir," she whispered, "we're going full time lock already?" Nolan nodded. "They fired first, but isn't that too much?" She asked. "They only destroyed one small ship." "One ship," Nolan replied quietly. "But they tested us. They wanted to see if we'd respond. They don't know what we are." Ava stared at the screen where the frozen Varnax ship floated in space. She had never seen a battlefield like this, where only one side could move. "Think or act. What do we do now?" she asked. "We walk through time," Nolan said simply. "And we show them what happens when you fire on humans first." Across the ship, specialized teams prepared for boarding operations. These were not ordinary soldiers. They wore time-threaded suits, connected to the temporal flow of the ship. They could move outside into the frozen space, step onto enemy ships while their crews remained locked in their last thought. As the team left the airlock, the stillness outside was haunting. Not a single sound, not a single shift. Even the stars looked frozen. The human team reached the enemy cruiser in silence, magnetic boots clinging to the hull. They cut through the outer shell and slipped inside. Inside, the Varnax crew were frozen in mid-motion, one soldier half-turned, another mid-step, all unaware, all helpless. The team placed sensor beacons, took data logs, and tagged weapons. But then something strange happened. One of the human soldiers signaled. His voice cracked through the comms. We've got movement, one of them is. Looking at me, the team turned to see a single alien, a tall figure in ceremonial armor blinking slowly. Her eyes were following the human team, even though her body didn't move. She shouldn't have been able to do that. No Varnax had ever broken time lock before. Nolan watched the feed from the bridge, narrowing his eyes. "Bring her in," he said. "Alive." As the boarding team secured the alien, Nolan stood in silence. Something had changed. This wasn't just about one ship anymore. It was about what came next. And in the stillness of frozen space, the war had already begun. The alien woman lay silent on the steel table. Her golden armor cracked, her breathing slow but steady. Her skin was a pale violet shade, her eyes sharp even as she lay restrained. The human crew watched her through the reinforced glass, unsure whether to fear her or pity her. Commander Nolan stood nearby, arms crossed. His face showed no emotion, but inside his mind was racing. How had she moved during the time lock? That wasn't supposed to be possible. Not even humans could move freely outside the horizon's reach, only within it. Lieutenant Ava Monroe stood beside him, her arms tightly folded. "Sir, she was blinking," she said softly. "She looked right at us." Nolan nodded. "I saw it. She shouldn't be able to do that." Ava added, "No one should." "Exactly," Nolan said. "That's why we need to find out what she is." The door hissed open as Dr. Lindley, the ship's head xenobiologist, entered with a tablet in hand. "Vitals are stable," she said. "No signs of aggression, but her neural waves are strange. She's not asleep, not awake either. It's like she's between states." "She could be dangerous," one of the security guards muttered. "She already is," Nolan replied. "She's proof we're not the only ones with time manipulation." Soft beeping filled the room, and the alien woman's eyes opened slowly. They were glowing faintly gold, shimmering like stars underwater. She didn't scream, didn't thrash. She just stared, calm and quiet. "You speak?" Nolan asked, stepping closer. She tilted her head slightly, then replied in near-perfect English. "You are the ones who broke the stream." Ava blinked. "What stream?" "The stream of stars," the alien said, her voice steady. "The natural flow of time. Your ship rips holes in it, bends it, traps it like prey." Nolan studied her carefully. "And you?" "You moved in the stream, even when it froze." The alien nodded once. "I am Virexa, temporal priestess of the ninth spiral. I was born within the fold. I see what others cannot." Ava leaned forward, curiosity overtaking fear. "You knew we were coming?" "I felt the ripple," Virexa replied. "Like a scream underwater. You cannot stop time, human. You only step outside of it and pretend the river paused." The room fell silent. "She's not just a soldier," Dr. Lindley whispered. "She's something else, some kind of specialist." Nolan looked at her carefully. "Then she'd tell us what the Varnax were planning." "I will tell you this," Virexa said sharply. "We did not expect your kind to wield such weapons. You're new to the stars, but you act like gods. That ship you destroyed?" Nolan asked. "It was a survey team, unarmed, just mapping minerals." Virexa's expression did not change. "We thought it was bait, a trick to hide your true vessel." "You assumed," Nolan replied coldly. "And your commander fired without warning. And you responded by stopping time itself." She shot back. "Your kind is dangerous." Ava stepped forward, trying to keep the peace. "Look, maybe both sides were wrong, but we don't want war." Virexa looked at her, then back at Nolan. "Then prove it." Before Nolan could answer, the ship's AI, Calder, interrupted over the intercom. "Commander, long-range sensors have detected a massive temporal distortion. Vector, 200 degrees starboard. It's not Varnax." Nolan's brow furrowed. On screen, the central monitor lit up, showing a slow, dark wave pushing through space. It wasn't a ship, it was a field, like a wall of heat and energy bending light as it passed. "It's alive?" Ava said in shock. "No," Calder corrected, "but something is inside it, and it's bending time more violently than we are. Virexa turned her head sharply toward the screen, her face suddenly pale. No, she whispered. Not them, not here. You know what this is? Nolan asked. They are the Kelverin, she said slowly. Star predators from beyond our edge of space. We thought they were legend. They consume time itself. They feed on it. Dr. Limley stared at the wave on the screen. They're eating time? Yes, Virexa said, her voice trembling for the first time. And if they reach us while we're still locked in time, we will be the easiest prey in the galaxy. Nolan turned toward his officers. Cancel time lock, sir? Calder asked. Do it, Nolan repeated. We need full movement now. Keep our reality cinched. We're not alone anymore. As the hum of the ship shifted and the time field weakened, Nolan looked at Virexa again. If you want peace, help us survive whatever that thing is. Virexa stared at him, then nodded once. If we live through this, human, you'll understand why some wars are better lost than won. The stars outside began to shimmer again. But not because of time lock. Something far older was now watching. The halls of the horizon's reach felt heavier, like time itself was pushing back. Even with the time lock disabled, the ship groaned from deep within its walls, as if the universe outside didn't agree with what the humans had just done. Virexa sat quietly in the containment room, no longer restrained but still under heavy guard. Her golden armor had been removed, and she now wore simple gray clothing, yet her presence felt powerful. Her eyes never stopped scanning, watching every flicker of light and every breath from those around her. Lieutenant Ava Monroe entered the room with 2 guards behind her. She carried a datapad and a cup of warm liquid, something close to what the ship's systems called tea. I brought you something, Ava said, trying to be polite. Virexa took the cup without a word, sniffed it, and drank slowly. Your kindness is strange, she said. Unnecessary. It's called manners, Ava replied. We're not animals. You built a ship that steps outside of time, Virexa said calmly. That is what animals do when they fear extinction. They become dangerous. Ava sat across from her, setting the datapad down. We have questions. Of course, Virexa said, folding her hands. And I may have answers, but you must understand something, Lieutenant. The Varnax did not mean to start a war. We were told humans were still soft. That's the mistake most of the galaxy makes, Ava said. Until they see what we're willing to do when you hurt one of ours. Virexa studied her for a moment. That is why you are feared now, she said. Not because you are strong, but because you care too much. Before Ava could reply, the lights dimmed for a moment, then flickered back to normal. A soft warning echoed through the ship. Bridge to crew. All hands report temporal shift detected. Ava stood up instantly. Stay here, she said. Already moving toward the door, Virexa didn't move, but her voice followed her. It's them, on the bridge. Commander Nolan was already standing. In front of the main screen, the dark wave that had been approaching now glowed with shifting patterns, like liquid shadows dancing with light. The sensors had trouble identifying its shape. Every few seconds, it changed almost like it didn't want to be seen the same way twice. Report, Nolan said sharply. Calder, the II answered. We have full scans now, Commander. The object is composed of organic matter and temporal distortion fields, multiple internal structures, possibly housing biological entities, but nothing fixed in time. In English, Nolan snapped. They're alive but not living like US, Calder said. They don't follow time the way we do. The bridge went silent. Then, without warning, a beam of energy reached out from the wave. It didn't hit the horizon's reach. Instead, it touched a frozen Varnax ship still floating in the distance. The moment the beam made contact, the alien ship aged visibly. The metal rusted in seconds. Its lights went out, and it crumbled like old paper. No explosion, just slow, horrifying decay. They're feeding, Ava whispered, stepping onto the bridge. They're eating time. Nolan didn't blink. Shields up, Full burn. Get us behind the moon. The horizon's reach began to move, its engines rumbling like thunder. But the ship was large, and the strange enemy was fast. Another tendril of light flickered through space, almost touching their tail. "We can't outrun it," Calder warned. "Not without breaking time again." Nolan turned. "What are options?" Ava hesitated, then said, "Virexa knew they were coming. She called them Kelverin. She might know how to fight them." Nolan nodded once. "Get her." Moments later, Virexa stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the strange storm outside. She looked smaller now, surrounded by human officers, lights and noise. But her voice carried weight. "They don't attack like you think," she said. "They drift, they infect. If you fire at them, they'll ignore the weapons and go for your past. Every shot you take cost you years. Then how do we stop them?" Nolan asked. "You can't," Virexa replied, "but you can survive. There's an old ruin, a Varnak's temple buried on the nearby moon. Inside it, there's a device we once used to block temporal attacks. It might still work." "You knew this earlier," Nolan said, his voice cold. "I didn't trust you," she answered simply. "Now I don't want to die." Nolan turned to Ava. "You'll go with her. Take a scout team. Find that ruin and wake it up." "Yes, sir," Ava said, already moving. As the crew prepared, Virexa looked back one last time at the screen. "They are older than war," she whispered. "But maybe, just maybe, you humans are foolish enough to win." Outside, the wave of the Kelverin shifted again, no longer drifting. Now it was coming straight for them. The shuttle broke through the gray clouds above the dead moon, moving fast but carefully. Ava sat in the front seat beside the pilot, her eyes fixed on the rough surface below. The place looked lifeless, cracked rocks, deep craters, and strange shadows that didn't match the light. Virexa sat in the back, quiet, her eyes closed as if she was listening to something far away. She didn't wear armor now, only a thick cloak and the strange necklace that glowed softly with blue light. "Are you sure this place still works?" Ava asked, glancing back at her. "It worked once," Virexa said, not opening her eyes. "And if the stars haven't shifted too much, it will again." The pilot landed near a large ridge, where something old and broken stuck out of the ground. Like the bones of a giant creature, a ruined tower, half sunk into the rock, stood near the edge of a cliff. Cracks ran along its sides, and strange symbols were carved deep into the stone. Ava and her small team stepped out, weapons ready, even. Though the area felt empty, the air was cold and thin, and each step echoed too loudly in the stillness. "This is it?" one soldier asked. Virexa nodded, then pointed toward a stone door built into the ground. "The beacon sleeps below." The door didn't open with force. Instead, Virexa touched the stone with her glowing necklace, and it slid aside with a deep A long tunnel led downward, lit by blue crystals that began to shine as they passed. As they walked deeper, Ava felt strange, like her footsteps were out of rhythm. Like time itself was slower underground. One of the soldiers looked dizzy, and another whispered that their wrist computer just skipped a full minute. "This place is alive," Virexa said. "Old time lives here, it remembers." At the end of the tunnel, they reached a round chamber filled with broken machines, metal bones, and a large pedestal at the center. A sphere the size of a human head sat on top of it, covered in dust and faintly glowing from within. "That's the beacon?" Ava asked. "Yes," Virexa replied, stepping forward. "But it will not wake for free." "What does that mean?" Ava asked carefully. "The machine runs on memory," Virexa said, placing her hands on the sphere. "To start it, someone must give a part of their time years from their life." Ava's eyes widened. "You didn't mention that before." "I knew you wouldn't understand," Virexa said, closing her eyes. "But I do. I have lived long enough. I will give 10 years to wake it." Before Ava could stop her, the room filled with light. The sphere pulsed, and the air twisted like a wave underwater. Virexa stood firm, her body trembling slightly. Her skin lost some of its color, and her face looked tired older. Then the room calmed, and the beacon glowed bright blue. Lines of energy shot through the walls, reaching the surface above. A soft hum filled the air, and the walls began to shine with strange light. Back on the horizon's reach, Commander Nolan stood on the bridge, watching the monitors closely. Suddenly, the wave of the Kelveran slowed down. Its edges flickered, as if something was holding it back. "Commander," Calder said, "we're detecting a powerful field from the moon. It's disrupting the enemy's time field. They're weakening." Nolan gave a sharp nod. "Send word to Ava. Tell her the beacon worked, and they need to get back fast." Underground, Ava helped Virexa stand. The alien woman's legs were shaking, and her breath was slow, but she was smiling. "You didn't have to do that," Ava said, steadying her. "Maybe not," Virexa said softly, "but your people fight like fire. You burn, but you also warm the dark." The team carried Virexa up the tunnel, back to the shuttle. As they left the ruin, they saw the sky above glowing strangely. The Kelveran wave had stopped moving for the first time, and a dark mist now floated around it, confused and flickering, as the shuttle lifted off. Ava looked back at the beacon's tower. Its lights now reached high into the sky, sending a warning. Through space something ancient had awakened, and the galaxy would feel it when they returned to the horizon's reach. Nolan met them in the hangar. His eyes landed on Virexa first. Seeing the change in her face, "She gave 10 years, Ava said quietly, "and it worked." Virexa looked up at Nolan and said, "Your ship may control time, Commander, but your people, they carry something more powerful." "What's that?" Nolan asked. "Hope," she replied. And then she collapsed into Ava's arms. Exhausted but alive outside, the stars began to shift again. But now, the humans had a chance. And they were ready to fight. The horizon's reach floated near the moon, its shields glowing faintly, and its massive engines silent. Everyone on board was holding their breath. The strange wave of the Kelveran had slowed, but it had not stopped completely. It circled in space like a hungry predator searching for weak prey. Inside the ship, Commander Nolan walked through the dim hallway toward the lower weapons deck. His boots echoed with each step, and his face was tighter than usual. He had seen battle many times, but never anything like this. This wasn't war with bullets or missiles. It was a war of time, fear, and survival. Ava was already waiting for him in the control chamber, along with Calder, the ship's AI, and a team of engineers. They stood in front of a massive screen that showed the Kelveran wave twisting like a living storm. "It's not gone," Ava said, pointing to the screen. "It's just watching." Nolan nodded. "Like it's thinking." Calder's voice came through the speakers. "Calm but serious, Commander. The beacon on the moon has created a disruption field that slows the Kelveran. However, the effect is fading. With distance, if they move beyond it, they'll regain full strength. So we strike now," Nolan said, his eyes narrowing. The engineers exchanged nervous looks. "Sir," one of them said, "our weapons weren't made for something like this. Missiles won't hit something that isn't bound by time, and lasers just pass through them." "We don't need normal weapons," Nolan said. "We use the Omega Protocol." Ava's eyes widened. "That hasn't been used in over 30 years. "Because nothing needed it," Nolan said. "Until now, in the deepest part of the horizon's reach, hidden behind layers of security and steel, rested the Omega arsenal. It wasn't just powerful, it was ancient. These weapons were built during humanity's darkest wars, things designed to tear through reality itself. Many believed they should have been destroyed, but someone had chosen to keep them, just in case." Calder opened the vault, and the air turned cold. As the doors slid apart, blue light poured out. Inside were strange weapons. One looked like a frozen star locked in glass. Another hummed with energy that made the walls shake. The final one pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat made of metal and light. "We'll use the chronospears," Nolan said, pointing to the heart-shaped weapon. "If the Kelveran feed on time, then we poison their food." The plan was dangerous, but it was Their only chance. The chronospears didn't just attack, they injected a virus into the enemy's time stream. It would cause them to collapse under their own weight, aging forward and backward at the same time until they broke apart. Ava was chosen to lead the strike team. She suited up with 3 other elite soldiers, each wearing heavy exo-armor and carrying the strange spear launchers. As they moved toward the shuttle bay, Nolan stopped her for a moment. "You don't have to go," he said, his voice low. "I know," Ava said, smiling faintly. "But I want to." The shuttle launched silently, flying low across the moon's surface and curving out toward the Calvaran wave. It wasn't like flying toward a ship. It was flying toward a shadow. A storm that blinked in and out of view, twisting space as it moved. As they neared the edge of the wave, time began to bend. The shuttle lights flickered, and Ava's hand looked older 1 second, then younger the next. One soldier screamed as his visor showed a memory from his childhood clear as day, then vanished again. "Hold steady," Ava said, her voice strong over the comms. "Aim for the center mass. Fire when ready." They launched the first spear, and the moment it touched the wave, the entire storm shook. Not physically, but in time. A low vibration passed through their minds, like a scream with no sound. The second spear hit, and then the third. Suddenly, parts of the Calvaran began to collapse. One section aged rapidly and cracked into dust, while another rewound itself, forming into strange shapes before melting away. The storm flickered again angrily now. "It's working," one soldier shouted. "We're hurting it." Then the wave struck back. A tendril of dark light whipped out and grabbed the shuttle's wing. The ship spun wildly, alarms blaring. One soldier was pulled into the void, his scream cut off mid-word. Ava managed to steady the shuttle, her hands gripping the controls with all her strength. "We're out of time," she said. Launching the final spear, she locked onto the center and fired. The final chronospear flew straight, cutting through twisted space, and landed right at the heart of the storm. The Calvaran froze, then began to break apart. Light spilled out in every direction, and time itself seemed to scream. Everything moved at once, fast, slow, backward, forward, until the wave crumbled into pieces of dark mist and vanished without a sound. The shuttle limped back to the horizon's reach, smoke trailing from its engines. One seat was empty, but the mission had succeeded. When Ava stepped off the shuttle, covered in ash and cuts, Nolan met her with a deep nod. "You did it," he said. "We did," she replied, looking up at the stars. "But I think they were just one part of what's out there." Nolan's face turned serious again. "Then we'd better be ready." Far beyond the reach of their sensors, something else stirred in the dark. The lights inside the horizon's reach flickered. Again, not from damage, but from something deeper. Even though the Calvaran wave had been destroyed, the ship was not the same. The crew walked slower, and the air felt heavier. Like time itself was tired. Varexa rested in the medical bay, her body weak after giving 10 years of her life to wake the beacon. Her eyes opened slowly as Ava entered, holding a report pad and 2 small nutrient packs. "You're awake," Ava said, sitting beside her. "We destroyed the wave. The chronospears worked." Varexa nodded slightly. "Good," she whispered. "But that was not the end." Ava frowned. "What do you mean?" "The Calvaran are never alone," Varexa said, struggling to sit up. "They travel in echoes, some weaker, some stronger. And once one is killed, others can follow the signal left behind." Ava stood quickly, alarm in her voice. "You think more are coming?" "I don't think," Varexa said. "I know." Meanwhile, Nolan stood on the bridge, watching a full scan sweep of nearby space. The area was calm for now. The wreckage of the Varnak ships floated in silence, most of them destroyed by the earlier time wave, but a few survivors had sent distress signals. "Should we respond to them?" the communications officer asked. "They're requesting medical help." Nolan paused, then nodded. "Send a recovery team. Get anyone alive off those ships and bring them aboard. If they fired first, we'll still act better than they did. Soon." After, a human shuttle returned with 2 Varnak survivors. One was an injured pilot. The other a Varnak's captain who had lost half his face armor in the first attack. He looked around the human ship with confusion and pain in his eyes. Nolan met him in the hangar bay, hands folded behind his back. "You're lucky we showed you." "Mercy," he said. The captain coughed, then said, "You froze time and pierced our minds." "That's not mercy, that's power." "Then remember it," Nolan replied. "Next time you think humans are weak." Later that cycle, the ship's AI, Calder, detected something strange again. It wasn't a wave this time, but a whispered data signals hidden inside the stars. Sounds that shouldn't be there. Patterns that didn't match any known language. They're not messages, Calder said to Nolan. "They're memories." "From what?" Nolan asked. "Unknown," Calder replied. "But they are coming from a point beyond the beacon's reach. They're building something in the time field we can't see. It's not matter, it's intent." Nolan leaned forward. "Can we trace it?" "We can follow the distortion trail," Calder said. "But we will need Varexa's help. Her mind sees what we do not." Ava returned to Varexa's room and found her sitting up now, breathing easier. "The ship needs you again," she said gently. "There's something out there, and we can't understand it without your eyes." Varexa stood slowly, still weak but determined. "Then let's go." Inside the ship's war room, a 3D hologram showed waves of time. Like ripples across a black ocean, Nolan and Ava stood with several officers while Varexa watched quietly. Her eyes glowed faintly again, and she pointed to a single point in the field. "There," she said. "Something is forming, but not from matter. It's memory made real." "Explain," Nolan said. "They are not sending ships," Varexa replied. "They are sending pieces of themselves, thoughts, emotions, rage, all wrapped in time. If that reaches us, we won't just lose our future, we will forget who we were." Ava looked shocked. "Like erasing history?" "No," Varexa said. "Like rewriting it." Nolan turned to Calder. "How do we stop that?" Calder paused, then said, "We don't destroy it, we overwrite it. If they send emotion, we send stronger emotion back, something real, something human." Ava frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means we build a time echo of our own," Nolan said slowly. "We feed it with our memories, our truth, our pain and strength. We show them what it means to be human." In the days that followed, the ship's engineers and AI worked with Varexa to create a memory core, something that could be launched like a beacon, but filled not with code, but human experiences. They collected logs, recordings, emotions, love letters from soldiers, final messages from fallen crew, and dreams stored in the AI's memory banks. When the memory beacon was complete, Nolan held it in his hands. It pulsed softly, not like a weapon, but like a heart. "Are we sure this will work?" he asked. "No," Varexa said honestly, "but they'll hear us." And so the horizon's reach turned toward the edge of known space, where the next wave was waiting. The stars ahead were dark, and time was trembling again. But now, humanity had a voice not of war, but of will, and they were ready to speak. The memory beacon was launched into deep space. It drifted slowly at first, like a small spark in a sea of darkness. Then it began to glow brighter, pulsing with feelings, memories, voices, everything that made humans who they were. It wasn't just data. It was a piece of humanity's heart. The horizon's reach watched from a safe distance, shields up, weapons ready, waiting for the reaction. Nolan stood on the bridge with Ava and Varexa beside him. No one spoke, not even Calder, the AI. Everyone was holding their breath. The space ahead of them twisted. The second Kelveran presence was arriving, but it didn't look like the last one. This one wasn't a wave, it was a shape, a massive living creature made of swirling smoke and broken time. Its eyes looked like suns melting inside ice. It saw everything, past and present at once. "It's aware," Varexa whispered. "It feels the beacon." The creature moved toward the memory beacon, surrounding it without touching. If for a moment, everything went silent, no sound. No movement, even the stars seemed to dim. Then it happened. The beacon released the first emotion, sorrow. A recording played of a soldier whispering goodbye to his daughter before a lost battle. His voice cracked, and the creature paused. Then came love, a message from a husband to his wife, sent across light years, full of hope and longing. The creature shivered, part of its form flickering like a candle in wind. Then came rage. The memory of a human city destroyed by alien hands, and the scream of survivors that followed. The beacon shared it all, the pain, the fury, and the strength that came after. The Calvaran shape twisted violently, struggling to hold form. It had never known these feelings before. Not like this. It had consumed time, erased empires, but it had never felt what it meant to live. "It's working," Ava said, her voice filled with shock. "It's actually feeling something." The creature reached toward the beacon with tendrils of shifting light. It touched it, and a bright wave exploded outward, not of destruction, but of memory. The horizon's reach was caught in it. But instead of pain, the crew felt something strange. They were standing in old memories, watching their own pasts unfold. Ava saw her younger self running through a green field on Earth, her brother chasing her. Nolan saw his first day in the academy, scared but proud. One soldier dropped to his knees, crying at the vision of his lost wife smiling back at him. The Calvaran began to shake, parts of it breaking off like falling dust. The emotions were too much, too sharp. It tried to feed on them. But human feelings had shape, power, and weight. The more it tried to consume, the more it broke. Then it let out a sound, a real sound for the first time. It was a deep cry that echoed across space, not made of words but of confusion and fear. It backed away from the beacon, shrinking, its light dimming. "It's retreating," Calder said. "It's not dying, but it doesn't want this fight anymore." The horizon's reach stood still, watching the strange creature slowly vanish into the void, not destroyed, but changed. It had touched humanity and couldn't return to what it was. Virexa leaned against the railing, tired but smiling faintly. "You didn't fight it," she said. "You taught it." Nolan let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. "Maybe that's what makes us dangerous," he said. "Not the weapons, not the ships, but the stories we carry." Ava looked at the beacon, now floating alone, glowing softly. "We didn't just survive," she said. "We connected." A soft alert beeped across the bridge. Calder spoke. "Commander, we're receiving signals from other sectors. The Varnak's fleets have pulled back, and new races are broadcasting peace messages. They all saw what happened here." Nolan turned to his crew, his voice steady. "Then let them come, we'll talk. We'll share. But if anyone forgets what we are, we remind them, one memory at a time." Outside the ship, the stars looked clearer, like something heavy had been lifted. The memory beacon continued to drift, now carrying more than just memories. It carried the proof that humanity wasn't just strong. They were unforgettable. The horizon's reach floated calmly now, its massive hull no longer shaking, its engines silent, all across the ship. The crew moved slowly, not because of fear, but because something had changed inside them. They had survived something larger than war, something older than hate. Virexa sat in the observation room, watching the stars. Her body was still weak, but her eyes were calm. For the first time in many years, she felt no threat coming from the dark, only light. Ava joined her, sitting beside her in silence. They didn't speak for a while, just stared into the galaxy stretching out in every direction. "What happens now?" Ava finally asked. Virexa smiled faintly. "Now you teach, you show the others what it means to feel." Across the bridge, Commander Nolan stood in front of the main screen. Calder, the II, had gathered reports from every corner of nearby space. Dozens of signals were being received, some from allies, others from old enemies, all of them asking the same thing. "We saw the beacon," one message said. "We want to understand," another said. "We always thought humans were dangerous, but maybe we were just afraid of how deeply you care." Nolan folded his arms, listening to the voices play across the air. "Tell them they're welcome to speak with us," he said. "But we won't forget who fired first." Calder responded, "Acknowledged, Commander. Shall I begin diplomacy protocols?" "Not yet," Nolan said. "First, we remember." The crew held a memorial in the hangar bay. A single light floated above them, a small orb that carried the names of those lost. Human and alien alike. Ava spoke for her team, Virexa for hers. One of the human engineers played soft music from Earth, and the ship fell silent. They remembered the survey team, lost in the first blast. They remembered the soldier pulled into time, never found again. And they remembered the one who stayed behind to make the final spear strike. Count. No one wept loudly, but tears flowed, silent and strong. Later, Virexa stood with Nolan near the command deck. She had chosen to stay aboard for now. Not because she was forced, but because she wanted to learn more. "You didn't win by destroying them," she said softly. "You won by making them see." "You," Nolan looked at the stars, then at her. "You helped us do that." "I once thought humans were wild," Virexa said. "Unpredictable, dangerous. And now?" he asked. "Now I think you are necessary," she replied. "This galaxy was growing cold. You brought fire back to it. In the days that followed, new ships arrived, not to attack, but to visit, a Varnak science vessel, carrying peace offerings. A group of scholars from a race called the Solari, wanting to study the memory beacon, even a quiet message from deep space. Unsigned, simply saying, "Thank you." The beacon continued to glow. Still drifting at the edge of the system, it was now a symbol, not just for humans, but for every species that had lost something and wanted to feel again. Nolan sat alone one evening in his quarters, reading old mission logs. At the end of one report, written by Ava, he read a line that made him pause. "We didn't stop the enemy with weapons. We stopped them with memories ours." He closed the pad and looked out the small window, watching a cluster of stars twinkle in the dark, far away, beyond known systems. Something else had seen what happened, something quiet, watching. It did not move. It did not speak, but it remembered. And that memory was now touched by something new, something human. On the horizon's reach, a new protocol was born, not for war, but for contact. Instead of just defenses and weapons, the ship now carried memory beacons in every launch bay. Not to threaten, but to remind the galaxy, "We are here, and we feel everything." Ava visited the engine room one last time before her shift. The lights were calm, the hum of the core steady. She placed a small charm her brothers on the control panel, and whispered, "Still with me." Then she smiled, turned, and walked back to duty. This was not the end of the journey, but the start of a new one. Humanity had shown what it could do in battle. Now it would show what it could do in peace, and across the stars. Those who once feared the Titan-class ship now saw it not just as a war machine, but as a carrier of memory, a guardian of feeling, a ship that could freeze time, but chose to remember instead.